Good afternoon and welcome to Voyager National Park Association's Night Sky Explorer Series. I am right outside of Voyager's in cloudy International Falls today. So I'll start with the usual reminders for those of you watching on Zoom to turn off your microphone, stop your video, so you don't find yourself unintentionally broadcasting yourself to the approximately about 500 people who do watch the recorded or live presentations. Also, remember that we'll use the chat box in both Zoom and Facebook Live to share any links and information with you. And we encourage all of you watching to let us know where you're viewing from and let us know, is this your first time viewing or are you a returning or regular viewer? If you're a returning viewer, you know that we are the nonprofit Voyagers National Park Association, and we partner with the National Park Service to help bring awareness to the national park, bring access while also raising funds for conservation and education projects. And one of those projects has been to bring you the series in anticipation of the park's upcoming certification as an international dark sky park. And a neat thing that Condé Nast posted yesterday was an article talking about stargazing and other treasures in Voyagers National Park, and we'll post that link so you can read the article yourself. But there is one really neat thing in there that in the story, our VNPA Executive Director, Christina Hausman-Rohde, was talking about an experience she had during one of VNPA's Teen Ambassador trips. The Teen Ambassadors are a program that VNPA funds students from all over Minnesota, whether in the cities or are the local students here in the Gateway, to come up and experience the park, do some wilderness camping. And in one of these trips, Christina was with some students, and the students saw this amazing sight in the sky that they'd never seen before, and they asked, what is that? And it was the Milky Way. And that's pretty common that not only youth, high school students, but adults don't often have that chance to see the Milky Way. And that kind of ties right into tonight's program, that protecting the starry skies from light pollution. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Astro Bob, our speaker tonight. He is a retired photo editor from the Duluth News Tribune, has his own blog, and you can see that on our page there, astrobob.areavoices.com. And you can also find the previous programs he's done on the VNPA website. So welcome, Astro Bob.
Well, thank you very much, Jackie. Great to be back again. It's cloudy here as well, but it's going to clear up tomorrow night. I always keep a close eye on the weather forecast. It has been a very exciting week, and I bet a lot of our viewers can guess why. We've had a beautiful comet out in the night sky below the bowl of the Big Dipper, called Comet Neowise, and we've talked about that in past weeks, and I'll also touch on it here in just a moment. So I hope you get an opportunity to see this comet. The question I'm most often asked is, how long are we going to be able to view it? And it will be there for many more weeks. However, it is slowly fading over time. It's not nearly as bright, for instance, this week as it was a week ago, but it's still visible, especially if you look at it from a dark sky. So with that in mind, we'll jump right over to a picture of the comet. We'll share that with you here. And I hope you can see that. That is Comet Neowise, and I photographed this about 4 nights ago from a beautiful dark sky site just north of where I live in Duluth, Minnesota. I had those nice pine trees that happened to be perfectly positioned, so I put the comet between them, and you can see 2 tails here. This is what's so interesting. This is the head of the comet, and here's one tail, the brighter one, the one you really can see with your eye. That's called the dust tail, because that's dust that is floating away from the head of the comet after being released by the heat of the sun. That dust was once inside of ice, and the ice vaporized, and the sun's bright rays push the dust back to form the tail. The second tail is called the gas tail, and it's made of glowing carbon monoxide. Sounds pretty disgusting, I know, but carbon monoxide is also locked in that ice, and when it vaporizes, it becomes a gas, and ultraviolet light from the sun, which is very powerful, fluoresces that gas. It causes it to glow, and it makes a fainter tail. You can't see that with your naked eye, this gas tail as it's called, but you can see it from a dark sky in a pair of binoculars as a skinny little thread running up the other side of the comet. Again, here's kind of anatomy 101. We've got the comet, as you can see there. That's the brightest part, the part you'll first notice when you go out. As the sky gets darker and darker, you'll see more and more of the tail. As a matter of fact, the other night I was out and the tail was more than a fist in length. It was a fist and a half in length, which is equal to 15 degrees. Pretty amazing. And there's the gas tail on the left. The dust tail actually spans, it's like a fan. If you have a lens and you take a time exposure, you can see that it's not just a plume, but it expands all the way into this beautiful faint fan. Where is the comet right now? Well, lucky for us, it's in the evening sky. You might remember that a week ago or so, it was only visible in the morning sky. But the comet is moving around the sun and moving through space roughly one thumb width, if you put your thumb against the sky, about a thumb width each night. And that movement has taken it into the evening sky. So now you go out about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the sun sets and look in the northwestern sky. Depends if you're viewing from the southern states, it's about a fist above the northwestern horizon. Here in the northern half of the country, it's about 2 fists high. And it's right here below the bowl of the Big Dipper. Here's the comet, for instance, this evening. I've marked its position on the 21st, and you can see it kind of crawling up under the belly of the Great Bear through the 24th in this little star map. The comet, the best time to see it again, an hour and a half to 2 hours after sunset, and look at it at the very next opportunity because it is fading. And also the moon is coming back into the sky. And you know what that moon does? That moon brightens the sky, right? And it kind of gets rid of the stars and it'll make things like tails fainter and harder to see. And as always with this comet, for a bright, beautiful view, use binoculars. It is remarkable in a pair of binoculars. This map is available, by the way, on my website, which is on the VNP site. We're going to talk today about light pollution. Something that we are now all familiar with, artificial night sky brightness. Here are maps, early maps taken by satellites, and also a future forecast for light pollution. This is the United States, the extent of light as viewed from outer space back in the late 1950s. Here it is in the mid-70s. Notice it's increasing. By 1997, much of the East Coast, and certainly the area around Chicago and these large cities here in the Midwest, very light polluted. And here's the prediction for 2025. I guess what I'm trying to point out to you on this little diagram is that it's not going backwards. The skies are not getting darker with time. They are getting brighter with time, much brighter, unfortunately, because we know what that does. Here's a fairly recent photograph of the United States taken by an orbiting satellite at night, where you can really get a sense of the light pollution. The bright cities are these bright blotches. The little strings that you see are major highways with small cities along them. This is Minneapolis and Duluth. I highlighted these areas because that's where I live. If you want to see your own area individually to see how it rates light pollution wise, or if you want to get out of town and find a place that's dark in your area, say for instance, to really get a good look at this comet, I encourage you to go to lightpollutionmap.info. That will also be listed on the Voyager site. At that site, you can zoom all around the planet and check out the light pollution near you. It includes all the road maps, so you know exactly which direction and what highway you might take in order to find dark skies. You'll also be appalled as you go around the country to see how bright some areas truly are. The brighter they are, the redder they are, right? And then the bluer they are, the darker they are. Voyageurs National Park, of course, is one of the darkest sites in the United States. So what is the cause of all of this light pollution? It's incredibly simple. Two basic things: overlighting, meaning too much light where not as much is needed, and poorly designed and unshielded lighting. So light that is shielded is directed to where it's needed. Unshielded light, some of it goes to where it's needed, but much of it spreads off in other directions where it's not needed. Light pollution causes three basic things. Number one, sky glow. That light goes up into the sky, robs the stars, right? It takes the stars from view. There's no true darkness or night. As Jackie had mentioned earlier, she said a person looked up from Voyageurs National Park and for the first time they saw the Milky Way. Imagine living years and years of your life without even knowing it was overhead. That's sky glow. Light trespass is when a light shines into your eyes or on your property or where it's unneeded. And then glare is always bad. It's difficult when you're driving, and it also makes it difficult to see your environment at night. Unshielded lights spread light everywhere, so it can often be hard to see what's around and ahead. Good lighting, simple. It's remarkably simple. Good lighting and dark skies are like that close for us because the solution is so simple. Good lighting shields the lights. It blocks light from going where it doesn't belong. It covers the bulb from view. Here's unshielded on the left, and then we put a little box around it, and we have light going where it's necessary, not out where it glares you as you're driving by, or up where it blocks out the stars. Here's some more examples, and this is just for the sense of terminology, right? So when we talk about lighting and shielded lighting, there are various degrees of shielding. So for instance, we have very bad lights here. Obviously, you've seen these, right? These balls or just a bare lamp. These are non-cutoff fixtures. Light goes everywhere. Do we need to light the sky? No. Do we need to light this building over here? No. Where we need the light is where we are walking at night, so we can see. Our eyes also adapt at night. That's the beautiful thing. We don't need to have everything lit for us. Properly directed light lets our eyes adapt so we can see beyond the properly lit areas. Bad lighting, not as bad as semi-cutoff, where there's a shield on top, but the light still shines down below the horizontal. Better lighting is here, still a little light going below the horizontal, and full cutoff. That's where it's truly boxed and the light is spread into a cone, again, on the streets or sidewalks or wherever you need it for safety's sake. A couple of examples, you probably have seen these city street lights. You've got semi-cutoff here where the bulb sticks out down below. It's better than not having any cutoff, but obviously not as good as full cutoff where the bulb is built into the housing. When you drive around at night like me, I guess because I just love the sky and I love darkness so much, I've become kind of sensitized to bad lighting. And you may curse me after this because after I show you these different examples, you may also become sensitized to bad lighting, and it may frustrate you to see this lighting in your neighborhood once you're aware of it. But that has a good side too, because it can lead you to action, to making changes, at your home or in your neighborhood, or perhaps even citywide. This is classic ornamental unshielded lighting. We have wasted light, light trespass, and glare. Yes, the ground is lit up. You can see your car, but the building is lit up. The snow is lit up. There's far much too light here. By the way, this is the full moon up above, and it's outshone by the ornamental lighting. These ornamental lights look like this. You see them in the daytime. Nice poles. They have that classic kind of early 20th century look, but they are filled with light bulbs, or I should say LEDs nowadays, that are incredibly brilliant. So we have this 21st century technology in this nice quaint fixture. creating tremendous amounts of unwanted light and glare. Another type of bad lighting, and this is very popular in some European countries, and I'm starting to see it creep into the United States as well, is uplighting, where lights are put around buildings to highlight them at night. While I agree, and I think it does look beautiful, I think that there's a disconnect here. That light, while making the church look beautiful or library, whatever you're building, also quietly destroys the darkness of the night sky, making it harder to see stars, to bring your children out to enjoy a dark night, and forcing people who enjoy a dark sky to drive many miles into the countryside to see the stars. These are classic. I see a lot of these. Instead of putting light poles up in a parking lot, a wall pack light, as it's called, there's wall pack parking lot lighting, is built into the side of a building. It just shines out. So you have light in the parking lot and tremendous glare. This is bad if you're driving, bad if you're walking. Plus it's a waste of electricity when the light could be directed to the lot. Service station canopy lighting. Again, we're talking over much light, glare, light trespass. Even though it's under a roof, these stations are deliberately overlit so that it attracts your eye. It draws you in because I guess we're all kind of like moths in a way, right? We're attracted to light. Here's poorly shielded street lighting. You've got a little shielding on the top, but the bulb sticks out down below. This light would be far more effective. It would not illuminate all the fog if it was housed properly and shielded. Here's a great example of really good lighting. We've seen some really bad lights, right? But this is what fully shielded street lighting looks like. This is on a street in Duluth called 4th Street, and it was recently put in last year, year and a half. And you can see that the bulb is completely enclosed in the housing. And when the lights do go on at night, they shine down onto the street and sidewalk where the light is needed, not in your eyes when you drive down the street. I don't know if any of you have that problem, but when you're driving at night and glare is shining in your eyes from poorly shielded lights, kind of hurts. And it's also unsafe too. And again, unnecessary light. Another example, these are wall pack lights, right? But they are cut off. Instead of shining out this way, these are facing downward and again, providing the light where it's needed. This is one of my favorite photographs. This is in Duluth again. On the left is a place we call the Lake Walk, which goes right around the edge of Lake Superior. And the lighting there is perfect. It's full cutoff lighting so people can walk. At the same time, they can look out over the lake instead of being glare bombed by direct lighting. Then over in the upper right, you can see brilliant lights on this building, just shining straight out, lighting up the air and also lighting up the night sky, completely unshielded. So what's the big deal with lighting, right? Mostly, I think most people think good lighting is a great idea, but most of us aren't aware of it. It's a problem. It's the key thing to make in your own mind, and perhaps with your neighbors or others you might talk to about lighting, is that while a city of 1 million lights is beautiful looking, there are consequences to that. We make sacrifices. And the sacrifice is we lose the sky for us and our children and future generations as well. So making the connection between lights in the sky is critical. One affects the other. We have poor lighting and overlighting, steals the stars, forces us to drive many miles to find a dark sky, causes glare and wastes electricity. Here's the Milky Way from the countryside over here. This is the Milky Way from a typical suburb. You can barely, I don't know, maybe you could just see it down there a little bit, but you can see the huge difference it makes when the lights are gone or when they're shielded properly. Recently, it used to be that lights were either mercury vapor, kind of the white ones from many years ago, and then we went to a newer technology in the 80s using sodium vapor. Those are the lights that kind of have the warm orange or peach color to them. And more recently, we've switched over to LED lighting. And LED lighting is excellent for many things because it's super inexpensive compared to those older forms of lighting. So a lot of people touted it and said, wow, this is one of the best things we could ever have using these LEDs. This is an avenue in Duluth that was lit very soon after LEDs came out for street lights. It was brilliantly lit, and some of the neighbors complained about it because one of the things that goes along with some LED lighting you see in cities is that they are over bright. They're often too blue and too bright. So we thought LEDs were good for the environment. True, they are because they require less electricity. However, a cheaper technology like LEDs has led to overlighting. So it's almost like, great, we got this cheap technology, let's use a lot of it. And so that's led to overlighting, which is further bright the sky. So things have actually gotten considerably worse. I can see it from where I live, how much brighter the sky is compared to what it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. White or blue LED lights, which are the ones, if you've ever stopped under one of these things, it's incredibly bright. I've actually had to flip down my, what do you call it? The, I can't think, anyway, I've had to block the light in the car because it's too bright for my eyes. And LED lights affect our melatonin levels. They will actually affect how well you sleep, the blue ones in particular. So if you live in a neighborhood with a lot of these, you may have trouble sleeping, which can affect your melatonin levels. And that's not good for your health. Finally, LED lights and overlighting lead to changes in nature and can affect creatures other than us, right? We're not just, I've been talking about the sky and the human effects, but many creatures in nature are also affected by bright lighting and overlighting. So we're going to look at those quickly. Birds, one of the biggest effects, one of the biggest problems. 600 million migratory birds each year die flying into skyscrapers. Now they fly into them in the daytime, but they are incredibly attractive to a bird at night. And so many of these birds strike the buildings at night because they are drawn in by the lights. Those lights also draw in insects, which draw in the birds too, and to great harm. In Toronto alone, 1 million birds are killed each year flying into buildings. And here's some of those birds that someone collected. Another one that's a little more subtle and might affect where you live, if you live kind of in a suburban area or out in the country, is the loss of firefly habitat. When you overlight something, you get rid of the darkness, right? And what do you think needs darkness? Yeah, these little guys. And these aren't the only insects that are nocturnal or the only animals that depend upon night for their living. So when you brighten up an area, you can reduce the amount of habitat and lose the number of fireflies that you once had in your neighborhood or in the city in which you live. This has been publicized a great deal. The Florida sea turtles, they are threatened continuously by light pollution along the shoreline for hotels, restaurants, and so forth. These turtles live by moonlight. When it's time to lay the eggs, they want to find a dark place on the beach, and that can be difficult to find. Then when the hatchlings come out, when they're born, the little turtles get very confused by all the lights. They start heading for the lights, and that often puts them on roads where they're killed by passing cars. So light pollution affects sea turtles and many, many creatures, probably many more than we have any idea of. So you can see the magnitude, right, of this problem. It's in the sky. You've driven through large cities. What can we do about it? There are many things that we can do, but perhaps the simplest is right with our own home. It starts in our neighborhood. This is a mercury vapor light in my neighborhood. Some of these lights are left on all night. You have glare, you have light trespass, you have waste. This is a house, also my neighborhood. And the lights are left on all night here too, as well. As if it had some magical effect to protect the home. I don't leave my lights on at night. I use the light and I turn it off because just a little bit helps. One of the interesting reasons, as I was hinting at there, why people leave their lights on at night in their neighborhood is the sense of, I'm protecting my home from criminals. Well, they've done some studies, and it turns out that robberies, which people are often afraid of, lone homes, occur in the afternoon primarily, not at night when you're at home. And this is an interesting study that was done in a Chicago neighborhood. And what they did was they lit an alley because there was such a great amount of crime happening in that alley. So they lit the alley with lights. And then 1 year later, they compared the numbers. Was there an increase or was there a decrease in crime because of the extra lights added? This is before the lights were added, the red blocks. So we had 119 incidents of violent crime. After the lights were added, it actually went up, 136. It went up there. It went up in every category, increase overall of like 20% after the lights were installed over that year's time. That much of an increase in crime. Very interesting, because you know what lights do? They allow people to see things that otherwise they would have to bring a flashlight out to see. So it can sometimes make it easier for criminals when you light an area. Often lighting is bad, so it creates deep shadows and bright areas. So if you're a criminal, let's say, you can hide in the shadow. This is a great example. I love this picture. Here we have a bad light, right? Glary light, unshielded on the side of a house in the top photo. And if you look, you can, I can barely see the person there at the open gate. But if you shield the light with your hand, your eyes will adapt in just seconds and you'll be able to see the person standing in the gate. So that glare makes it hard for you to see. It creates harsh contrasts of darkness and shadow. And it also makes it, doesn't allow your eye to adapt properly to the night. So you can see details like this guy standing there waiting to get into your house, for instance. So I went to Menards. I thought, well, what can I do personally, right? And I thought, let's look at what the lighting selection is for the average consumer. And I couldn't believe it. This is what I saw. Every single one of these lights is basically unshielded, except for the ones that are on either timers or they're motion sensitive. So most of these lights are really bad for house lighting because they shine out rather than down. They're not shielded. But all is not lost. We have hope, because a smaller area, I looked around and I was able to find several fixtures that were shielded. Here's an example right here, and right here, and here, where these lights are contained within a housing and they shine down where they're needed. So if you want to be a good neighbor and you want to help darken the sky, you can do it first with your own home. And then if you're in good relations with your other neighbors and someone else has an offending light, you can talk to them about it and explain how they might change their light or how it affects your view of the sky and why the sky is important to you. Good neighbor lighting basics include: use the light only when you need it. When you're in the house and you're watching TV, turn the outdoor light out. It's that simple. Only light the area that needs it. You don't need to light your entire yard at night, right? Not necessary. Doesn't have to be incredibly bright either. Minimize blue type lights. Go for the warmer yellow. That yellow light doesn't scatter through the air as much and brighten the sky. It keeps it a little bit darker, and also make sure that those lights are fully shielded. There are communities where people have decided, or developers have decided, that people like dark skies and they like being in neighborhoods where there's not a lot of glare, because glare also induces stress. Okay, and we don't need any more stress. Harmony, Florida. This is an example of a dark sky friendly housing development. Fully shielded lighting, no unnecessary lighting along the street or on the homes. One final thought about lights. Maybe I have two final thoughts, forgive me. It's about temperature. I mentioned that the early LED lights, and many that you'll see in cities, especially the early ones, were very bluish white. They were extremely bright bluish white. These lights are called 5000 K. K stands for Kelvin. It's a temperature scale. More recently, LEDs have been invented that are just as inexpensive as the blue-white 5000 K version, but they are softer yellow, 3000 and in particular 2700 K lights. Those are the best. They provide plenty of lighting, but the color is softer and yellow, much more pleasing. The advantage of shielded yellow LED lighting, less glare, less scattered light in the sky, and those blue ones will suppress melatonin and disrupt your sleep. Yellow ones will not. You want change in your city? You go out and you're like, we need to make a massive change. I can do some things in my neighborhood. One thing I've learned is this: if you want change, you must complain. Complain, complain, and complain again. Let city officials know you're upset with overlighting and poor lighting, and keep calling. Be a pain. If you do, they will recognize, if enough people do this, they will recognize that, hey, maybe we have a problem here, and they will be open to changes. Or you could take the next step and you could take action. Call your city councilor or mayor. Explain what's happening about the waste and the glare and the fact that we're losing the night sky. Offer to help with better lighting solutions. And you can work with like-minded people to craft a lighting ordinance with the city. That happened in Duluth. In the city here, back in several years before they revamped the main street downtown, which is called Superior Street. This was what it looked like. We had lighting from the 1980s, total glare. We had these lamps, which had absolutely no shielding. They completely lit up the buildings. Light went into the night sky. But a group here in town, Starry Sky Superior, got together with the power officials in the city and worked for much better lighting, 2700K, the yellow LEDs, and also fully shielded LEDs. So when they tore up the street and rebuilt it downtown, check out what happened. Totally different feel. Look at that. I mean, it's amazing to walk down the difference. There's plenty of light to see around, and drivers do not have to deal with glare in their eyes. So what a difference it can make. This is just one small area in Duluth, which is helpful, but it is a start. You want more information about this? You're like, oh, Bob, you're telling me all this stuff. You know, maybe I need a little more time to digest this. So I suggest you go to my blog, to Astrobob, astrobob.areavoices.com. There on the right, if you're using a computer, laptop, if you're using your phone, it's on the bottom. You will see a list of links, and I've got them all put together, these light pollution links. Mitigation guide, how to do friendly lighting. I've even got one in there about a letter that you send to somebody to ask them politely to reduce the lighting at their home. So these are resources that you can use right on my website. And the point of it all, granted, we love to not waste or throw away energy, right? That it's so important not to just throw it out into the sky. It's estimated that 1/3 of the lighting in the United States goes up into the sky and on buildings where it's completely wasted. But the point is to keep the sky dark so we can go out, show our children, so we can keep the awe coming. We don't want to make this disconnect. We don't want to go here and see the sky disappear right before us when we have a solution, a simple solution in our hands. But we have to agree on this, and we have to spread the word. And I hope you do spread the word about simple ways to make lighting better while still keeping it safe and secure for walking, for driving. Those things all dovetail together to form one big solution. And with that, I will rejoin you out of the presentation. I always get very passionate about lights because, like you, I'm a sky lover. I like seeing a dark sky. And I've noticed over the years I've had to drive greater and greater distances to find those dark skies. So if you have any questions right now, I'm totally open, and we've got time. If you have questions about the comet, that's fine too, or if you'd like to talk about lighting, feel free.
We don't yet have any questions. Would you like to talk about next week or the presentation in 2 weeks on August 4th while we're seeing if anybody has questions?
Yeah, that'd be great. The very special thing, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a wonderful meteor shower. Well, and when I talk in 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about the Perseid meteor shower, which will peak. We'll have the greatest number of meteors on the night of August 11th, the morning of August the 12th. So we're going to learn all about the Perseids, where they come from, and how to view them, what's the best time to go out, and the best direction to look. So that'll be the topic on August the 4th.
All right, it doesn't look like we have any questions today. Is there anything else you'd like to say as we wrap up, Astro Bob?
Well, I hope everyone gets a chance to see the comet. I do have a map, and I will have updated information tomorrow. We'll do a new blog with a fresh map, and the comet's going to be around for a little bit yet. So good luck to you, and keep looking up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.